What's up, everyone? Ryan Flacco Rising here. About to go over this ASC presentation with you all. It's the critical role of social inequality in individual and group identities and why heterogeneity matters. The presentation will be at the 78th American Society of Criminology annual meeting. My presentation takes place November 15th. Wednesday at 3:30. And so I'll be presenting with my colleague, Dr. Rodriguez, Nancy Rodriguez, who's also a professor here at the University of California, Irvine. All right, let's dive into this. So the relationship between inequality and individual group identities is multifaceted. Inequality encompassing various social, economic, and cultural factors significantly influences how individuals and groups perceive themselves and are perceived by society. This inequality often shapes one's access to resources, opportunities, and power, thereby playing a pivotal role in the formation of group identities. Inequality on impact on individual and group identities. One, I want to highlight social stratification. Inequality contributes to stratification within society, where certain groups have more advantages while others face systemic disadvantages. This affects how people perceive their own identity and where they fit within the societal hierarchy. Economic disparities. Economic inequality in terms of wealth and income disparities can create distinct social classes. This economic division influences group identities, often leading to the formation of communities based on financial status. Now let's shift over to inequality and the justice system. So inequality has a significant impact on crime. Socioeconomic disparities often lead to unequal access to education, employment, and resources, which can drive individuals towards criminal activities. Now, we need to also highlight criminal justice system contact. Inequality is also reflected in criminal justice system. Marginalized groups, due to their social and economic status, often face disproportionate rates of contact with the justice system, leading to overrepresentation in prisons. Role of inequality in gangs. Group formation in prison settings, inequality and the disparities experienced outside of the prison walls often manifest in the formation of groups, or what the state has labeled as gangs. These groups might provide a sense of belonging, protection, or empowerment to individuals who feel marginalized or disenfranchised. Now, it's important to really highlight the heterogeneity and interdependence among these groups that the state has labeled as gangs. Diversity within groups is important. Groups are not homogeneous entities. They comprise individuals with diverse backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. Inequality influences the diverse makeup of these groups and shapes their collective identity. Interdependence. It's important to highlight the interdependence. Groups, even in their diversity, might still be interdependent due to shared experiences of inequality. They often collaborate, sometimes they're in conflict, or they intersect based on common goals or responses to societal inequities. Understanding these complex connections between inequality and identity and group formation is crucial in addressing social issues, as it allows for a more comprehensive approach to social policies, criminal justice reform, and the understanding of human behavior within various social contexts. Now let's shift over to some more of the literature review. Social inequality and crime. The relationship between social inequality and crime is intricate and deeply rooted in various systemic factors. Let's break down each element. Racial inequality in wealth and housing. The National Academy of Sciences findings emphasize the persisting disparities in wealth and housing based on race. And inequalities are often reflective of broader social and economic disparities affecting marginalized communities. Wealth disparities. Racial inequality is evident in the substantial wealth gaps between different racial groups. This disparity arises from historical factors, discriminatory policies, and unequal access to opportunities, leading to an uneven distribution of wealth among different racial communities. Housing disparities. Similar inequalities exist in housing due to historical segregation, redlining, and discriminatory practices. These have led to segregated communities where access to quality housing, education, and economic opportunities differ significantly based on race. Historical segregation and enduring effects. Systemic racism and discrimination. Historical segregation driven by systemic racism and discrimination has created enduring effects that persist in contemporary society. This segregation has shaped the socio-economic landscape, influencing access to resources and opportunities. Massey, Denton, Oliver, and Shapiro highlight these in their studies, which provide empirical evidence of how historical segregation has perpetuated inequalities, showing the lasting impact on marginalized communities. They shed light on how these inequalities are deeply entrenched within societal structures. Adaptation to social inequality. Subcultures and unique economies. Communities facing social inequality often adapt by forming subcultures and developing unique economic systems. These adaptations are survival strategies to navigate the challenges imposed by systemic inequalities. Scholarly works like Brotherton, Anderson, and Bourgeois, the works of these scholars delve into how communities respond to social inequality. They explore how subcultures emerge as a response to social marginalization and how unique economies develop within these communities to sustain livelihoods and navigate the challenges of inequality. Understanding the dynamics between social inequality and crime is crucial. The disparities in wealth, housing, and access to resources significantly influence the opportunities available to different communities. When certain groups face systemic barriers, they may resort to alternative means of survival, which could include activities that may be considered criminal. The historical context and enduring effects of segregation and discrimination further compound these issues, leading to a cycle of inequality that affects various aspects of life within marginalized communities. These adaptations, such as forming subcultures and unique economies, are often a response to the limited opportunities available, but they can also inadvertently lead to criminalization or further entrenchment of societal divisions. The impact of criminal justice policies on marginalized communities is extensive and often exasperates existing social inequalities. Let's delve into each policy and its effects. The war on drugs. This war on drugs, which was, in my eyes, and I argue, was a manufactured war on drugs by the government in order to produce profits and also to legitimize the imprisonment of surplus humanity, which they deemed as a threat to the makeup of the American system and the capitalist system. And so this war on drugs, which was intended to address drug related issues, which we've seen has been found that even the DEA was looking the other way as they were bringing drugs up from Panama, and they were taking those profits to fund the war out there over the banana plantations. That was highlighted in the Dark Alliance, which was, a book that you could look up as well. This, was intended to get at these drug related issues, but what ended up happening was it disproportionately affected marginalized communities. The enforcement of these policies often led to increased incarceration rates within these communities. So, disproportionate effects, studies such as a good friend of mine, Juan Flores, and Blanco Veres Palayo, highlight the disproportionate impact of drug related policies. They reveal how these policies contributed to higher arrests and incarceration rates among marginalized groups, exasperating social inequalities within these communities. Another policy was the gang labeling in RICO Act. So this one was a criminalization of marginalized groups. Policies that were adopted by law enforcement that exasperated the gang labeling, and further attacked marginalized communities underneath the pretense of serving and protecting the community from these demonized gang members. This social construct of this label gang member and gang has been ongoing for years, and law enforcement has used it as a means to extract millions upon millions of dollars in tax revenue away from our communities underneath this guise of serving and protecting them from these gang members and these gangs. Which another policy was the RICO Act, which is the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, which has been instrumental in criminalizing certain groups, which has led to mass incarceration within these communities. Scholarly works like Brotherton, Duran, and Flores, these studies shed light on how these policies contribute to the criminalization of marginalized groups. They explore how gang-related laws and the RICO Act are applied, resulting in the blanket labeling of individuals within certain communities, leading to further social disparities within these communities. Gang enhancements and gang injunctions, aggravating penalties. Gang enhancements and injunctions are policies designed to impose harsher penalties on individuals associated with gangs. They often disproportionately impact individuals from marginalized communities, exasperating their entanglement with the criminal punishment system. Contributions to inequality. These policies contribute to the perpetuation of social inequality by targeting specific groups, leading to an increased incarceration rates and further limiting opportunities for these communities. Understanding the impact of these policies is crucial in recognizing their role in perpetuating social inequality. While these policies are ostensibly designed to maintain public safety, their implementation often disproportionately affects marginalized communities, exasperating existing social disparities. The criminalization resulting from these policies perpetuates a cycle of disadvantage within these communities, further deepening the social and economic gaps that already exist. This cycle can perpetuate a system where certain groups face increased barriers to education, employment, and social mobility, contributing to the enduring social inequality within these communities. The criminalization of culture often involves the application of legal or law enforcement measures that stigmatize, isolate, and target specific communities. Here's a breakdown on how these policies contribute to the criminalization of certain cultures. Labeling individuals as gang members to dehumanize. Isolation and dehumanization. The use of the gang member label has been a tool to isolate and dehumanize individuals within communities. This label, often applied broadly, strips individuals of their individuality and instead associates them solely with a stigmatized group, leading to their marginalization and increased criminalization by law enforcement. The RICO Act and criminal liability extension. Community-wide criminal liability. The RICO Act's extension of criminal liability beyond individuals to entire communities contributes to the criminalization of these cultural groups. This act allows legal action against not just specific individuals, but also their broader community or organization, impacting the collective identity of these cultural groups. Gang enhancements and then gang injunctions as punitive measures. Alienation and stigmatization. Policies like gang enhancements and injunctions are punitive measures specifically targeting these communities. Rather than addressing root causes or offering support, these measures further stigmatize and alienate these groups. They focus on harsh penalties, leading to increased feelings of isolation and distrust within these communities. Caldwell's work delves into how these policies not only impose punitive measures, but also perpetuate the alienation and stigma experienced by these communities. The focus on enforcement rather than addressing underlying issues further distances these groups from society and reinforces negative perceptions about their cultural identity. The criminalization of culture through policies leads to the perpetuation of stereotypes and biases. Rather than addressing the underlying societal issues that may contribute to certain behaviors or associations within these communities, these policies often result in the further isolation, stigma, and an intensification of negative perceptions about these cultural groups. This perpetuates a cycle where these communities face systemic barriers to social and economic inclusion, contributing to their marginalization and reinforcing the societal divides that already exist. The interplay between policies, prison populations, adaptations within incarcerated communities, and the dynamics of governance within prisons is a complex and multifaceted issue. Policies and hypercriminalization impacting prison populations. There's been an explosion in incarceration rates. Policies contributing to hypercriminalization, as highlighted by Alexander, Salik, Brotherton, Block, and Overes Palayo, have led to a significant increase in prison populations. These policies, often targeting marginalized groups, resulted in high rates of incarceration and longer sentences, amplifying the number of individuals within the prison system. Adaptations within marginalized groups in prison. Development of economies and governance. Decker and Pyruz and Scarbeck highlight how incarcerated individuals from marginalized groups adapt within the prison environment. These adaptations involve the development of economies, such as trade or informal systems of exchange, and governance structures to maintain order and establish a semblance of control within the confined setting. Prison governance and resource control. Maintaining order and improving quality of life. Weed's work probably focuses on the significance of governance in prisons. Control over resources and power structures within the incarcerated community is crucial for maintaining order, mitigating conflicts, and enhancing the quality of life within the prison environment. This governance often emerges as a response to the absence of formal authority. The intersection of these elements showcases the complexities within the prison system. Policies that fuel hypercriminalization not only contribute to overcrowded prisons, but also impact the social dynamics within these institutions. Individuals, especially from marginalized communities, adapt to these environments by creating their own systems of governance and resource management. Understanding and examining these dynamics is essential for both addressing the issues within the prison system and comprehending the broader societal issues that contribute to the cycles of incarceration and marginalization. The exclusion of broader community processes and group formation, especially regarding gangs, results in a limited understanding of the complex dynamics driving their existence. Here's a deeper look at each aspect. Exclusion of broader community processes and group formation. Inadequate understanding. Research often focuses on specific aspects of group formation, particularly in the context of gangs, without delving into the broader societal, economic, and cultural factors that contribute to their existence. This limitation hampers a comprehensive understanding of the intricate processes that lead individuals to form such groups. Shortcomings in research on race, gangs, and prison. Neglecting heterogeneity. Studies focusing on race and gang formation within prison settings often fail to capture the diversity and complexity within racial and ethnic groups. This oversight obscures the individual differences, unique experiences, and varied motivations that contribute to group formation, resulting in a generalized perspective, overlooking interdependence among groups. The limited focus on interdependence among different groups neglects the intricate relationships, alliances, or conflicts that exist within incarcerated communities. Understanding the interplay between these groups is vital for a more nuanced comprehension of the dynamics within prison settings. Researchers' limited experience and understanding. Insufficient insight into incarcerated life. The limitations to researchers' experience and understanding of life behind bars hinder their ability to fully capture the realities and complexities of prison dynamics. Lack of direct exposure or existence in these environments can lead to gaps in comprehending the nuanced social structures and adaptation strategies within prisons. These limitations and research create a gap in understanding the multifaceted processes behind group formations, especially within the context of prisons and gangs. The failure to consider broader societal processes, the diversity within groups, and the interdependencies among them within prison settings can result in a fragmented understanding of the dynamics at play. Researchers' limited experience within these environments further exasperates these gaps, hindering a comprehensive understanding of the social, cultural, and individual factors influencing group formation within these contexts. Understanding gang formation in prison requires a multifaceted approach that delves into the complexities of individual, social, and systemic factors. Here's a comprehensive breakdown. Behavioral adaptations. Studying the behavioral adaptations and strategies employed by individuals and groups to navigate the challenges of incarceration. This involves exploring the development of economies, governance systems, and social structures within the confined environment. Power dynamics. Understanding the power structures and hierarchies within these groups, as well as how these dynamics influence interactions between different factions. This also involves examining conflicts and resolutions that arise within these power structures. Developing a more comprehensive understanding of gang formation in prison requires a holistic approach that considers the broader societal context, individual diversity, relationship among groups, and the behavioral adaptations within the prison environment. This multidimensional perspective is essential in crafting effective interventions, policies, and rehabilitation strategies that address the complex dynamics within incarcerated communities. Let's break down the methodology that combines historical research with an autoethnographic approach, specifically in the context of historical events in California and the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, culminating in a case study on the 2013 California hunger strikes. Historical research. This involves a comprehensive examination of historical events within California and the CDCR. It encompasses the evolution of the prison system, the policies, legislation, and societal dynamics influencing the state's corrections history. It explores the establishment of CDCR, its structural changes, and its impact on incarcerated individuals over time. We then do a case study on the 2013 California hunger strikes. We focus on a specific event, which the case study specifically centers on the 2013 California hunger strikes, diving into the context, causes, and implications of these protests within the CDCR. It aims to understand the motives, the organizing strategies, and the impact of these strikes on the incarcerated population and the prison system as a whole. Autoethnographic approach, qualitative personal experience. Autoethnography involves the researcher's personal experiences, allowing them to be part of the environment or culture being studied. The lead author's involvement, which is myself, in the prison system and active participation in the CDCR prisoner hunger strikes provides an insider perspective, capturing the personal experiences, reflections, and narratives within the system. Integration of historical research and autoethnography, interweaving historical context. The historical research acts as a foundation, providing a broader understanding of the systemic issues, policies, and social factors influencing the prison system and events like the hunger strikes. Personal experience and insights. The autoethnographic approach supplements the historical data with lived experiences, emotions, and personal reflections. This provides a unique insider perspective, allowing for a deeper understanding of the nuances, emotions, and human elements behind the historical events. Benefits and considerations. Richness of data. This methodology combines the depth of historical research with the personal depth of autoethnography, offering a more comprehensive view of the events, capturing not just what, but the how and the why, subjectivity and reflexivity. The use of personal experience brings subjectivity to the research. The researcher's reflexivity, acknowledging and critically reflecting on their positionality and biases, becomes crucial in maintaining the integrity of the study. This methodology, integrating historical research with the personal experiences of the lead author, provides a multi-layered and nuanced understanding of the 2013 California hunger strikes within the broader context of the state's correctional history. It offers a unique blend of objective historical context and subjective firsthand insights, enriching the analysis of the events and their impact on the incarcerated community and the prison system. The process of group formation within marginalized communities is multifaceted and goes beyond being perceived as monolithic criminal entities. Here's a detailed breakdown. Non-monolithic nature of marginalized groups. Diversity within groups. Marginalized groups are diverse and multifaceted, not singular entities. They comprise individuals with various backgrounds, experiences, and motivations. Their unity often arises from shared experiences of marginalization rather than solely from criminal intent. Varied objectives and identities. These groups might form for various reasons beyond criminal activity, such as seeking support, protection, or empowerment. Their identity is not solely defined by criminal activities, but also by shared goals and experiences. Empowerment and combating isolation. Seeking empowerment, these groups often organize to empower themselves in the face of systemic marginalization. They aim to address the challenges of limited opportunities, discrimination, and social exclusion by creating a collective identity that fosters empowerment and resilience. Combating isolation. Isolation and exclusion from mainstream society are significant factors that prompt marginalized groups to come together. Forming these groups helps combat the alienation and lack of support or representation they experience in society. Goals of leadership, professionalism, and self reliance. Leadership and organization. The objectives of these groups often involve cultivating leadership and organizational structures to address their community's needs. They aim to represent and advocate for their members or work towards social change. Professionalism and self reliance. The goals might include developing professional skills and self reliance to navigate societal barriers. This can involve creating economic opportunities, educational support, or community based services to foster self sufficiency. Understanding marginalized group formation through this lens emphasizes their diverse nature and motivations beyond criminality. These groups often arise as a response to societal marginalization, aiming to empower themselves, combat isolation, and cultivate a sense of agency and self reliance within their communities. Their goals encompass not only addressing immediate needs, but also establishing leadership structures and professional avenues to enhance their community standing and resilience in society. The 2013 California prisoner hunger strikes provides a pivotal moment in challenging inhumane conditions within the state's prison system and advocating for fundamental changes. Let's break down the significant impacts. Context of the hunger strikes. Duration and participation. Spanning from July 8th to September 5th, 2013, the strikes involved inmates across various units, including both general population and segregation units, staging a coordinated protest involving hunger strikes and work stoppages. Demands and objectives. Focus on conditions and solitary confinement. The primary demands revolved around improved conditions within the prison system and an end to long-term solitary confinement practices. Inmates sought an end to what they perceived as inhumane treatment and a call for reform and the use of solitary confinement. Impacts and outcomes. Abolition of long-term solitary confinement. As a result of these protests, the state made the significant decision to abolish long-term solitary confinement, marking a crucial shift in the punitive measures previously in place. Transformation of the prison system. The hunger strikes triggered a transformation within the prison system, moving from a punitive approach to a more rehabilitative one. This shift emphasized the need for a system focused on rehabilitation and reintegration rather than strict punishment. Introduction of rehabilitation programs. Unprecedented programs. The reform brought about the introduction of innovative programs within the prison system. These programs included initiatives such as bachelor's degree programs, vocational training, and various rehabilitation-focused activities aimed at fostering the rehabilitation of incarcerated individuals. Societal response and support. The reform didn't just affect the prison system, it catalyzed a societal shift towards supporting rehabilitation and reintegration. Universities responded by offering tailored programs for formerly incarcerated individuals, reflecting a broader societal shift towards supporting re-entry and rehabilitation efforts. The 2013 California prisoner hunger strike served as a catalyst for substantial change, highlighting the significance of inmate voices and advocating for humane treatment and reform within the prison system. The abolition of long-term solitary confinement and the subsequent focus on rehabilitation marked a transformative shift in the approach to incarceration, not only within the prison walls, but also within society's perception and support for the rehabilitation and reintegration of incarcerated individuals. Historical events like the Attica uprising and the California hunger strikes have reverberated as powerful symbols of resistance and demands for basic human rights and dignity, reflecting determined efforts to confront inequality and achieve better conditions within institutional systems. Let's break it down. Attica uprising and determination for change. Historical significance. The Attica uprising in 1971 was a significant prison uprising in New York that led to an intense standoff between incarcerated individuals and authorities. The Attica Liberation Faction emerged as a voice representing the incarcerated peoples, demands for better conditions, rights, and dignity within the prison system. Confronting inequality. The uprising highlighted the determination of incarcerated individuals to confront systemic oppression and demand improved living conditions, fair treatment, and access to basic resources within the prison system. This was the start of a movement that has carried on since, the prison reform movement. And so many things came out of this Attica uprising. Religious rights, TVs inside cells, electricity in cells. A lot of things changed. Food, but it did get rolled back, and there was a lot of things that got rolled back and back into this punitive state. And then 52 years later, we had the California hunger strikes and the quest for justice. Reflecting determination. The 2011 and 2013 California hunger strikes, akin to the Attica uprising, symbolized the resolves of incarcerated individuals to challenge inhumane conditions, particularly the prolonged use of solitary confinement. Stevenson's work of 2015 highlights the significance of these strikes in advocating for better treatment and more humane conditions within the prison system. Demand for dignity. Both movements exemplify a demand for basic human rights and dignity, emphasizing the importance of fair treatment, access to resources, and the abolition of practices perceived as dehumanizing. Common themes and collective power. Resistance against systemic oppression. Both movements share a common theme of resistance against systemic oppression. They represent a collective voice standing against the mistreatment and injustices perpetuated within institutional systems. Interdependence and collective power. These events showcase the interdependence and collective power of cultural groups within incarcerated settings. They illustrate the strength and unity that arises from shared experiences of marginalization and the pursuit of better conditions and resources. These historical events, the Attica uprising and the California hunger strikes, echo the persistent determination of marginalized groups within the prison system to challenge systemic injustices and demand humane treatment, dignity, and basic rights. They stand as significant reminders of the collective power and resilience of cultural groups in advocating for fair treatment and improved conditions within institutional settings. The relationship between inequality and criminal justice policies in shaping group formation within both communities and prisons is multifaceted. Here's a comprehensive breakdown. Role of inequality in criminal justice system policies. Systemic inequality. Inequality stemming from social, economic, and racial disparities often results in the marginalization of communities. These disparities are often collective identity formation. Marginalized groups often form collective identities as an adaptive response to systemic inequality. This collective identity acts as a means of solidarity, uniting individuals against the harsh conditions and systemic injustices they face. Fighting harsh conditions. In the face of systemic inequalities, these groups unite to confront harsh conditions and lack of resources. This collective identity becomes a tool for advocacy and resistance against oppressive systems. Interdependence, collective power, and bargaining. Interdependence among groups. Within communities or prisons, interdependence among these groups becomes essential for survival. Shared experiences of inequality foster connections, creating a network that relies on each other for support and solidarity. Collective power and bargaining. By banding together, these groups gain collective power. They leverage this power to bargain for resources, better conditions, and fair treatment. This collective action serves as a means to negotiate with authorities or the larger society for improved circumstances. Understanding the role of inequality in criminal justice systems, policies, and group formation within both communities and prisons is vital. It highlights how marginalized groups adapt to systemic inequality by forming collective identities to address harsh conditions and lack of resources. This collective identity, rooted in shared experiences, fosters interdependence, collective power, and the ability to negotiate for better treatment and conditions, serving as a means of resistance against systemic injustices. The increased attention to group formation as a response to inequality highlights the complexities often overlooked in understanding the roles and impacts of these formations, particularly within the context of prisons and systemic biases. Here's an in-depth breakdown. Incomplete perspective on prisons and gangs. Limited understanding. The prevailing focus on gangs within prisons often offers an incomplete understanding. It tends to oversimplify the complex roles, functions, and impacts of these groups within the incarcerated setting. Varied functions. These groups serve various functions beyond mere criminal association, including providing support networks, empowerment, cultural affiliations. Their roles and dynamics are multifaceted, encompassing both positive and some negative aspects, often overshadowed by the focus on criminal activities. Reassessment of race making. Institutional influence. Within systemic structures, there needs a need for a reassessment of the concept of race making. This notion highlights how racial identities are constructed and perpetuated within societal systems, including the criminal justice system. Race making, it really breaks down how individuals within prisons are participating in this racial sorting that is taking place, and they're in participation by banding together. When we've shown in our findings and we've argued that these groups band together for empowerment, for leadership, development, there's multiple aspects of why these groups band together. It's not to participate in this racial sorting project and penal management. Instead, what it does is it creates some solidarity, unity, and respect, and it keeps groups from going to war against each other and fighting against each other because of their cultural differences. So I also want to highlight that if we're going to say this is happening inside prisons, then what's the difference of it happening here at the university? At the university, you see all these different groups banding together to get resources, to become empowered, to learn their cultural history, learn their backgrounds and their historical events that have happened in their ethnic backgrounds, and so it's really no different here at the university than it is in prison. So are we saying that these groups that are coming together and like the Black Student Union, Mecha, and the different groups that exist on these university campuses are banding together in order to uh, be participating in some sort of racial sorting project here at the university? So I think we need to reassess that. Um, Response to inequality through group formation. Addressing systemic inequities. Group formations within prisons are often responses to systemic inequalities. They represent attempts by marginalized groups to navigate, resist, and survive within an unjust system. Seeking identity and support. These formations provide a sense of identity and support, helping individuals within these groups cope with the challenges and isolation stemming from societal biases and systemic discrimination. The increased focus on understanding group formations as a response to inequality highlights the need for a more comprehensive and nuanced perspective. It calls for an exploration of the multifaceted roles and impacts of these groups within prisons, acknowledging their functions beyond criminal associations. Moreover, reassessing the concept of race making within all systems, particularly within the criminal justice system, is crucial for acknowledging and addressing the biases and unequal treatment faced by certain racial or ethnic groups. This comprehensive understanding is essential for developing more effective, equitable, and fair policies within these systems. The criminal justice policies play a significant role in the criminalization of both gangs and communities, and transformative collective action by groups can significantly impact these dynamics. Criminal justice policies driving criminalization. Targeting of certain groups. Criminal justice policies often specifically target certain groups, particularly those perceived as gangs or gang affiliated. These policies might involve increased surveillance, harsher sentencing, and the creation of laws that disproportionately impact these communities. Consequences of criminalization. The criminalization arising from these policies leads to stigmatization and increased law enforcement focus on these communities. This, in turn, perpetuates a cycle of suspicion, marginalization, and limited opportunities within these groups. Impact of transformative collective action. Challenging systemic injustices. Collective action by these groups serves as a powerful tool to challenge systemic injustices. Through organized movements and advocacy, these groups aim to address the root causes of their marginalization and confront the biases within the CJ system. Advocacy for change. Transformative collective action often involves advocating for policy changes, reforms in the justice system, and initiatives that promote community empowerment and rehabilitation over strict punitive measures. The interplay between criminal justice policies and the response of these groups is critical. Policies that disproportionately target specific communities or groups lead to their criminalization, perpetuating a cycle of disadvantage and limited opportunities. In conclusion, When these marginalized groups engage in transformative collective action, they aim to challenge these biases, demand reforms, and advocate for a more equitable and rehabilitative approach within the criminal justice system. This collective action represents a powerful means to address systemic injustices and work towards a more just and fair system for these communities. Thank you, everyone. I'm Ryan Flacco Rising, along with my colleague, Nancy Rodriguez, who will be presenting this at the, I believe it's the 75th ASC conference, which will be Wednesday in Philadelphia. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you would like or have any questions or any critique, please reach out to me at UC Irvine. Thank you very much. Have a great day.